from our next guest, Representative Bill Johnson, who's a Republican from the 6th Congressional District in Ohio and joins us on the morning briefing. Good morning, Congressman. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, Tim. Thanks for having me on. Good to be with you.
Clearly, there were some people who were just confused. There were some people who were surprised. Was this just a misstatement by the president? Did you take it any other way than just than the words? How did you interpret what he said?
Well, I think we can pretty much expect that the President of the United States, the American people expect them to be on their game all the time. I don't think this was a misstatement. I think it's a reflection, Tim, of just how disconnected and disassociated this president is with what's really going on with the American people. I mean, all you got to do is look at the 88.5 million people, Americans that have left the workforce and have stopped looking for a job. This president's policies have hurt America. They continue to make our economy worse, and he doesn't seem to get it.
Now, in your state, I'm not sure how it is in your district, but your state has actually been doing better than the nation in unemployment, correct?
Well, we have. We've seen an uptick in jobs, and that's directly related to private sector growth in the energy industry. We've got the Marcellus and the Utica Shale. There has been a tremendous amount of investment by the oil and gas companies here along the Ohio River. So there is no doubt there's reason to be hopeful. But remember, this uptick in jobs in Ohio is happening in spite of the president's policies, not because of them. Because on federal lands last year, drilling for our nation's natural resources decreased by 11%. We've got the EPA that is trying to insert itself into the hydraulic fracturing process, a process that the state of Ohio has regulated since 1965 very effectively, very safely. So it's happening in spite of the president's policies, not because of them, I can tell you that.
To your point about the regulation by the state of hydraulic fracturing, we're talking about newer technologies, though, that are being used, and clearly it's in evidence because of the fact that now we can extract the oil from these shale deposits that couldn't be done 10, 15 years ago. So are you certain, absolutely certain, that there's no danger and therefore that there is no need for more oversight by the EPA in this kind of process?
Yeah, no, I absolutely think that there is no need for more oversight by the EPA. The EPA is so far out of control right now, it's not even funny. I mean, you look at what they're doing to the steel industry. We've got two manganese ferroalloy plants in America that produce a raw material that's a required ingredient in steel manufacturing. And what does the EPA do? The EPA comes out with a proposed rule that will essentially shut both of these down, which means we can't manufacture steel here in Ohio or anywhere else in the country without buying manganese ferroalloy from our competitors, countries like China and Korea and others. So absolutely, the EPA does not need to insert itself into a process that Ohio has been doing very, very effectively for a long time.
So given the success you've been having in your state finding these resources, is the EPA's level of regulation and oversight now at an appropriate level?
They need to stay out of it.
Well, I mean, in other words, where they are right now, in other words, that's okay, because, I mean, the state, as you said, has actually been able to increase its revenues and has been doing well as a result of this.
Well, as it relates to hydraulic fracturing, if they stay where they are, we're probably okay. What we don't need is the EPA to come in and insert itself in this process because, we've been doing hydraulic fracturing now for over 60 years, over 1 million such operations, not once. And even the EPA administrator herself has acknowledged that we have not had an incident where hydraulic fracturing has contaminated the water table.
But again, we are looking at some newer technologies now, right? I mean, this is not...
Yep. Absolutely, yeah. We are, Tim. We are looking at some newer technologies, and I want to make something very clear. I'm not a no regulation person. Where public health and public safety and national security are concerned, I'm in favor of common sense, practical regulations that make sure that we meet the requirements of those three criteria. But right now today, regulations in this country cost our economy about $1.7 trillion per year. That comes out of our economy. And I travel all up and down this district, I can tell you that I meet with many businesses that are so frustrated with the EPA and with the Department of the Interior and their onerous regulations that are virtually closing down industries. I mean, let's talk about coal for a second. My goodness, the coal industry is about ready to go under because of the EPA's onerous regulations. And the president said he was going to do that, and he has stayed firm on his word.
Well, and that was part. I mean, your district at one time was big coal country, right?
It still is big coal country. Mm-hmm. Remember, about 40% of America's energy comes from coal, and 87% of Ohio's energy comes from coal. We're talking about skyrocketing utility rates for Americans that are already struggling to make ends meet. We're talking about, the vice president comes to Ohio and talks about a resurgence in manufacturing. Where does he think the manufacturing facilities in Ohio are going to get the energy to run their operations if we shut down the coal industry, for crying out loud?
Speaking of which, before we go, and we're almost out of time, but I wanted to ask, we've seen gasoline prices drop about 16 cents a gallon in the past 3 weeks. They've been going down. What do you attribute that to?
Well, it is certainly not attributable to policies coming out of the administration. The rejection of the Keystone XL pipeline. You're going to have fluctuations, and I think one thing that we're seeing is that our competitors are seeing that America means business. You're hearing more and more talk from national leaders and elected officials like myself and others of my colleagues in the Republican House talking about energy independence and security. We've got competitors that we buy our oil and our energy sources from. They don't want to see America start becoming energy independent and secure. And so I suspect what you're seeing is an awakening on the part of those that are providing us our energy and our oil. That hey, we better start playing in the game, or America's going to find a way to do it themselves. And they know we can solve our own problems.
All right. I appreciate you spending time with us, Congressman Bill Johnson. Thanks for joining us on POTUS this morning.
Tim, thanks so very much.